What is up, everyone? Renfail here. We're back for episode 2 of Dune, which is, man, it's a read. I haven't actually wanted to attempt this in 20 years because it is a pretty significantly chunky series if you want to dive all the way through. We're currently focusing on just the original first 3 books, the Great Dune Trilogy as it's known, which is typically what adaptations have been based off of in the past, and it's what they're doing right now. The films they are filming right now are based on the first 3 books in the Dune series. So I decided to start this Decoding Dune series where I read the books for the first time since I initially read them when I was a late teenager. And having the power of the internet at my disposal and lots of fans like you who can drop comments and have a conversation around this as we get going, it's been a lot of fun. So thanks to those of you who have been here through the initial introduction in the first episode. We're continuing onwards. This is chapter 2 of book 1, simply called Dune. If you've never watched one of these episodes before, we're going to be going through the chapter here and then asking questions along the way. You might not have ever seen something done like this. Maybe you have. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, and we're going to get into the chapter now. Oh, so this is when we get our first glimpse of the Harkonnens. So this I love this opening scene. The opening paragraph here of chapter 2 is the globe. It says a relief globe of a world, partly in shadows, spinning under the impetus of a fat hand that glittered with rings. So it's just that's a really cool detail to have as you're initially starting the scene. There's this character there, and he's just like idly spinning this, and he's, you know, fat hand glittering with rings, obviously living a very opulent lifestyle. And we get their first audible moment to meet the Baron. Mm. As he gloats over the plan that he's just set for the Duke. Oh, wheels are in motion. There's some really more interesting details about the globe. So as they're having this conversation, his hand stops spinning the globe, and it says all eyes could finally focus on its motionless surface and see that it was the kind of globe made for wealthy collectors or planetary governors of the empire, and it had the stamp. Well, just this is just the sentence. It had the stamp of imperial handicraft about it. I think that's a very unique way of establishing very early on because the it's a weird fiefdom, so to speak, if I remember correctly. But it's all these planets that are underneath the jurisdiction of the emperor, and then there's the Spacing Guild, I think I recall, manipulating things as well politically. You have the Bene Gesserits. I remember this being a fairly complex political, tapestry that could be woven. Um, and at the heart of it all is the Imperial. Um, so I like this fact that it says this globe. Obviously, it's kind of like the Roman Empire, so to speak. It's like this has been handed down from the emperor to you to show how important you are, but also the fact that, you are part of the great machine. So they're sitting here and they just receive a message, and apparently it's from the Duke. And you see Peter, one of the Baron's men here. Have they told us who Peter is yet? I vaguely remember who he is, especially from the films and everything else. They haven't actually said who he is yet. They've just introduced him as a character. So he gets the mail, the message cylinder, and then he's like, "The fool answered us, Baron." And the Baron replies, Whenever did an Atreides refuse the opportunity for a gesture? Well, what did he say? So apparently they're totally baiting the Duke. And also there's this comment by Peter says, "To think, Baron, the Padishah Emperor believes he's given the Duke your spice planet. How poignant." So obviously they've got something up their sleeve here. Apparently this was a message for a meeting, and the Duke declines. More than declines. He says, "Your offer of a meeting was refused. I have oft times met your treachery, and this is all men know. The art of Kenley still has admirers in the Empire." He signs it, the Duke of Arrakis. The Duke of Arrakis. Oh my, this is almost too rich. Peter begins to laugh. Canley? Vendetta? The nice old words, so rich in tradition, I'm sure the Duke. Okay, so the Duke uses those words to be sure I know he means it. To which Peter replies, "You made the peace gesture. The forms have been obeyed." Ah, here we get a here we find out who Peter really is. The Baron calls him a mentat and says, "You talk too much." And then to himself, "I must do away with that one soon. He has almost outlived his usefulness." His mentat assassin. The shaded slits of blue within blue. The eyes without any white in them at all. Oh, so we're getting in the head of Fade as well. So we've got the Mentat Peter and the Baron sort of having this back and forth bickering contest. Says Fade squirmed in his chair and said to him, thought to himself, those wrangling fools. My uncle cannot talk to his Mentat without arguing. Do they think they have nothing to do except to listen to their arguments? So he starts talking to Fade, the Baron does. I says, I feel pity towards the poor Duke. Dr. Ewa will move against him soon, and that will be the end of all the Atreides. But surely Leto will know whose hand directed the pliant doctor, and knowing that will be a terrible thing. So obviously we're establishing very early on that there is an enmity between these two guys, between the Duke Harkonnen and uh, Baron, excuse me, the Baron Harkonnen and Duke Leto. Obviously some beef between these two that goes back, because this is vendetta. They both told each other to fuck off, and now they're continuing to make their moves. And they want each other dead. Like, there's no love lost here. We also get our first mention of the Sardaukar. Basically, Peter telling the Baron, you're being a little bold with all of your, moves. You better slow your roll, or the Emperor might actually take interest and send a legion or two of his Sardaukar down onto Giddy Prime, and that'll be the end of the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. This is when Peter sort of snaps back at the Baron. Don't play with me. You already promised me to Lady Jessica. You promised her to me. Oh. And what of the Dukeling? Of the child Paul? So we also learn here during this chapter that Fade is very impatient. He keeps interrupting the conversation to whine about, but uncle this, but uncle that. Um, and the Baron finally has enough of it. And he's like, look at this little thing. He aspires to rule my barony, but he cannot rule himself. We also learn that the reason Peter's eyes are blue is that he consumes spice, too much spice, and eats it like candy. And the Baron refers to this as he might have come directly from the Arakan labor pool. Sorry, Arakan labor pool. Hey everyone, Renfail here with the commercial part of the video where I say, hey, if you like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. And thanks to all of our supporters here on YouTube and over on Patreon, our highest members, our guild champions, Crazy's Relative, Remy D here on YouTube. And don't forget, if you want to support, it's really easy. You can do the memberships below, the Adventurers Guild, 3 different tiers. There's also the super thanks on any uploaded video or YouTube short that you find. There's also, of course, the super chats and stickers that you could do on any live stream or premiere, and the Patreon page if you want to dive into the fantasy world that I have with my brother and my wife, which is a tabletop game, a point-and-click adventure game, and a fantasy book series. All are great ways to keep this channel going and me going full-time. Thanks again for those of you who support. Let's get back to the video that you're watching now. Oh, this is brilliant banter between Peter and the Baron. And I like how it's going on. This is really good dialogue here. Peter demanding, "Are you already training my replacement?" Like, how could I find another Mentat with your cunning and venom? And he's like, the same place you found me, Baron. And the Baron replies, perhaps I should at that. You've grown a bit unstable lately. Like, the insults between these two are quite vile. Ooh, the Baron telling him, you are on display. Now be silent. This is a Mentat, Fade. It has been trained and conditioned to perform certain duties. The fact that it's encased in a human body, however, must not be overlooked. A serious drawback, that. I sometimes think the ancients with their thinking machines had the right idea. And Peter snarls. They were toys compared to me. You yourself, Baron, could outperform those machines. Ooh, so the Baron wants Peter to actually reveal all of his plans to Fade. Perform one of your various functions. So he treats Peter like an absolute piece of shit. Listen carefully, Fade. Observe the plans within plans within plans. Ew, and Fade thinking to himself, finally this is proof that he really wants me as his heir. He's sharing some of his inner workings with me. Ooh, delightful. And they mention here of renegade houses who took family atomics and shields and fled beyond the Imperium. But the Baron says the Duke is too proud for that. So even once he realizes the trap has been set, he's not going to flee. And here we get the definite inclination, proof of concept here. The Baron saying, "I want him dead and his line ended." And Peter replying, "That's a high probability." Oh, I see why he said that's a high probability. He's referring more to the fact that it would be more likely for the Duke to flee. Oh, we get the whole plan laid out. They're going to be forced to land at the city, at the residency. There's going to be an attempt on the life of the Atreides heir on Paul, an attempt which could fail. How what will be divine that we have an agent planted on him? The obvious suspect is Dr. Yu, who is indeed our agent. Okay, so this is all the laying out of the plan that's about to happen. Ooh, they're going to implicate Lady Jessica, at least that's what Peter wants. Saying that how its mind will be so obsessed with this prospect it'll impair his function as a mentat. He may even try to kill her. Oh, and here's the honeypot, and here's where the Baron says we'll move in strengthened by 2 legions of Sardaukar disguised as Harkonnen livery. And Fade goes, Sardaukar? His mind focused on the dread Imperial troops, the killers without mercy, the soldier fanatics of the Padishah Emperor. And the Baron replies, "You see how I trust you, Fade. No hint of this must ever reach into the great house, else the Landsraad might unite against the Imperial House, and there would be chaos." So obviously, letting his nephew in on a secret here that he's in cahoots with the Emperor. So the Emperor is absolutely corrupt. This is the Roman Empire at its height. Um, Corruption everywhere. This is obvious. This is an obvious corruption plot directly from the Emperor, showing how corrupt he is, working in secret with um, the Baron, because it's all about the spice. Ultimately, it all comes down to control of the spice. And they even talk here. House Harkonnen is being used to do the Imperial dirty work. And the whole idea behind this is there's wealth beyond that of any other house in the Imperium. And the Baron replies, "You have no idea how much wealth is involved, not in your wildest imaginings." Also, an irrevocable directorship in the is it the Coam Company or the Choam Company? We're getting a little bit of political information here. Choam directorships, they were the real evidence of political power within the Imperium, passing with the ships of voting strength within the Landsraad as it balanced itself against the Emperor and his supporters. Okay. There's the prediction here, as Peter says, that the Duke may attempt to flee to the Fremen, or perhaps send his family into that imagined security. But he says, but that path is blocked by one of His Majesty's agents, the planetary ecologist. You may remember him, Dr. Kynes. Oh, there's mention here of House Hark. If all goes as planned, the House Harkonnen will have a fiefdom, sub fief on Arrakis within a standard year. Your uncle will have dispensation of that fief. His own personal agent will rule on Arrakis. Ah. And Peter says, even though it's going to be unspoken, the Grey Houses will know that the Baron destroyed the Atreides. They will know. And Peter says also, the Duke will know. In fact, he already knows now. He can already feel the trap. Send for food, my darling. We will eat before we retire. It's just a creepy way to end a chapter. Just showing us the opulent girth and fatness of this man as he hangs from a suspender chair. Well, it says partly sustained by portable suspenders harnessed to his flesh. He might weigh 200 standard kilos in reality, but his feet could carry no more than 50 of them. Big, fat man. Nasty, opulent. Ugh. The bejeweled hands and everything too. Well, that's a pretty good chapter as well. So in the first chapter, we get introduced to the Atreides. Oh, they're moving to another planet, and then we get this second chapter introducing the enemy to the family, and how all this move to the planet Arrakis is part of this elaborate plan, which they want to be a trap to eliminate the Atreides line, and they hope that the Duke knows that there's a trap and that he can't do anything about it because there's also the Imperial decree that he has to go take over. So he can't refuse the Emperor, right? He can't refuse the Emperor, so he's got to go to Arrakis. This is Leto Atreides, the Duke. And knowing that the Emperor is doing this in cahoots with the Harkonnens, it's like you're literally walking into what you know is a trap and what you know is something designed to kill you, and you still do it anyway, hoping that by some miracle you can pull off some way to protect your family. That's intense shit, man. Really intense. Love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss next week's episode. These are happening every week as long as I'm able to do them. Occasionally I get sick, but for the most part, I usually have a pretty good track record. So, see you guys in the next one. Pierce. Cheers. Whatever.